All right, Boilers, it's time. I want to welcome our very special guest tonight, the mother of Purdue basketball's star center and front-running candidate for National Player of the Year, Zach Edey, Julia Edey. Julia, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is such an honor.
You're welcome. It's my
Um,
pleasure.
so, I know your time's limited tonight. We'll get right into this. Can you give us any insight into what it's like to be the parent of not only like a Division I Big Ten basketball player at Purdue, but the mother of a player who's getting massive national attention now. He's the leading candidate for National Player of the Year. Like, are you traveling from Toronto to a lot of the games? Are you frantically clicking the news feeds and Twitters like us fans are? And what's it like watching all this unfold in front of you? I mean, and do you get as nervous as we do during games?
Yeah, great question. It's been an amazing ride. It's crazy. Zach's doing things that just he goes by leaps and bounds. The program embraces him. He embraces the work. It's been so much fun. This year, they're at a new group and they're all forming, and it's cool because he's one of the seniors, older guys on the team, so he's got a different role that he seems to be really embracing. I love these guys. I'm a complete stalker, I gotta say. I've been to a ton of their games. Last year I was driving to Minnesota and it was absolutely nuts. So yeah, I stayed down here for part of the season. First year, I think I just had an Airbnb for like 3 weeks, and then last year it was 6 weeks or 3 months, and this year it's something along that lines. So it's a lot of fun. The first year was a bit weird with COVID for sure, so it was a bit different. And then last year it was different again. All of a sudden there was new fans, and then this year it's different again because he's in a different role, and he's certainly making some waves. The whole team's making waves. It's just so much fun. And yeah, in terms of being nervous, yeah, crazy. The moms in general, we're all crazy. Some of the dads look at us and they're like, "Why are you so nervous? You're not the one playing." We're like, "I know, but that makes it worse. You can't get any of the energy out." So very nervous. If you watch me in the stands, unfortunately, my legs just jiggling the whole time. It's crazy. Yeah, it's a lot of fun though.
So one of the questions that I had for you, because everyone always, when they talk about Zach, they talk about how he played hockey for most of his youth and didn't take up basketball until he was in high school.
Right.
And it's kind of a bigger thing that you see kids not finishing at like your typical 4-year high school, but instead going to basketball academies. And my question for you was, how did you and your family come to that decision to have Zach, who had just been playing basketball for maybe a year at this point, and make the decision to say, hey, you're going to go down to Florida, you're going to go to a foreign country, and you're going to focus on playing basketball? Like, kind of like what went into that? Like, how tough of a decision was that as a family? I mean, in hindsight, it looks like that was a pretty good decision. But just curious about how decisions like that get made.
Yeah, no, Zach's always been very much the guy that wants to be the best of the best at whatever he's doing, if he can get there. And when he was younger, we had to sort of keep him to playing lots of sports, mostly because we didn't necessarily think that focusing in on one sport was the thing to do, and we just wanted him to love sport in general. And then when he got to higher and higher levels, we said, listen, you can only do one a season. Like, we got to narrow this down. And then so he picked hockey in the winter, and that's mostly because we're in a hockey community. And then baseball in the summer. And even at hockey, for the standards of where we live, he started late. Like, we started him skating at 6, and it was like, oh, everyone was all over us. Why aren't you starting him earlier? So he started playing with GTHL, which is the Toronto League, when he was 8, and we were getting lots of like, you guys are starting him way too late. And it was fine. We just didn't necessarily see the need for it. But as he got into competitive sport, he's just got a competitive spirit, and he's just kind of built that way. So by high school, we said, we can't have you playing these high levels at both these sports. You got to pick one. And so his last year of hockey was grade 8, and then he picked baseball. So in grade 9, he was actually, we had him at a baseball school. Like, he was really serious, and we said, okay, you know what, let's see how you look doing this. And then grade 10, when he said, hey, you know, we had him not playing hockey for the season, and we realized how kind of restless he was in the winter and how he was underfoot, and we were like, oh, okay, you know, maybe we should let him play some sports. So he said, I want to play some of the school sports. I'll try out for the basketball team. And he was only 7 feet, so I don't know. It was a pretty long shot whether they were going to take him, quite honestly. And then he of course, you know, he made that team. And even then, quite honestly, he didn't take to a duck to water. He was completely still engaged in the baseball. He didn't really get into the basketball in any serious way until he played a little bit more seriously. And then I think that fired up his competitive spirit, because when he was playing on the high school team, it was, you know, a little bit ridiculous because the school he was at isn't a basketball school at all. Yeah, and then it just really took off. He played baseball. He was still playing baseball that season, and then as the season went on, it was just too much, because then the Canadian men's team, or actually the cadet team, he was starting to look at that, and he said, you know, this is a lot of stuff while you're still doing all-season baseball. And then when IMG came along, it was strange. We didn't expect him to go to, he talked about going to the States. We said maybe in grade 12, and maybe he'll do a post-grad year. That was what we were thinking. And then IMG contacted us, you know, after he'd been into it less than a year, and we had to make that decision. And actually, it was mostly Zach's decision. I mean, his dad and I talked about it, said, how comfortable are we with this? You know, he's a young guy. This is scary. He's going to be going into, like you say, another country, in a sport that he's been playing not that long, and into a sport that is very, you know, an American sport. It's not like he was coming down to play hockey or something, you know. So it was, you're going to be going into the, you know, really into the lines kind of thing. And he himself said, you know, like, we asked him, what do you think? And he said, I know I'm going to be homesick. Like, that was his big thing. He's very realistic about things. He said, I'm going to be homesick, so I may as well get it out of the way. So grade 12, I can, you know, kind of kill it. And we're like, okay, well, let's give this a shot. But I got to tell you, when we dropped them off, I cried all the way home. We were driving home, and I just thought, what have we done? Like, this is insane. And then when we crossed the border, fresh tears, I cried like crazy again. It was hard. It was definitely hard. But a lot of it is just believing in him, and him believing in himself, and knowing that nothing's irreversible. You know, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. You don't want to go into it with any regrets, really.
That's great. My question is, we've heard so much this season about Zach developing as a leader and all of the leadership that he's doing on and off the court. And I just wondered if that's something that you've seen naturally in Zach all along, or is it something that's just developed more over time since he's had to step up now as he's an older guy on the court, and how much of that he's kind of picked up from working with Coach Painter?
I'd say it's probably a blend of all of those things. There's, you know, a maturity that's come along with him. His confidence has gone up. You know, as he's gotten to know the sport. You know, in the beginning, he was really a fish out of water. You know, you've probably heard him say that he resisted playing basketball when he was younger because it was just too predictable for him. But, you know, when he played hockey and when he played baseball, he was always a very, you know, just a kind of the way he is. He's a little bit, I know that people thought that when he was down here, you know, he seems like he's really stoic because he's kind of quiet. He's just pretty steady. You know, I actually see some of the same kind of characteristics in some of the other players that are on the team. They're just kind of quiet, steady guys. You know, they're not flashy. Like, this team is a very steady team, you know, in my opinion. And but I think that as his confidence has gone up, and Coach Painter's put a lot of confidence into him, and, you know, a lot of faith in him, and he's had a really wide, you know, variety of experience at this point in a very short period that's made him decide, I'm going to have to either believe or not, you know, kind of a thing. So he's grown right into it. I think there's a blend of all of those pieces. You know, he has a bit of a natural maybe-ness to it, but he's not necessarily the vocal leader. You know, you see like Mason and Ethan, they're real, you know, kind of teachers. Zach's more of kind of like, I'll just do, and I'll just show you, and, you know, it's up to you if you want to follow or not.
Yeah, I think that's great. Just the way seeing them all interact on the court is awesome, honestly. But one of my favorite things during the games is when the camera goes to you.
Oh.
Yeah. It's like we're on Julia watch.
I think I'm kind of glad I can't see what's happening on the feed, honestly, because I don't know what I do.
My question really for you is like kind of who goes to games with you, who's sitting with you guys, and like what family means to all of you guys.
It's a variety. The first year with COVID was really tough. I braved it a lot just myself because logistics, Canada had its borders very closed. But someone, I played a bit of basketball myself. So when he played the sport, I was so happy. I was like, oh my God, okay, this is a sport I really get. It's kind of just something that I really understand and I have a lot of fun at. So, first year was a lot of myself masked up, and that was good. It was kind of a quiet way to get to know the team. The parents have always been great. The first year I remember Bridget Hunter Jr. I love her. She's, and Zach had said Eric's one of the nicest guys that he's ever met. So, so it was good. There's always been a really inclusive feel in terms of the team and the parents, and then the second year, I guess last year, it was still mostly me because Canada was in and out of a lot of waves, and Canada's handled the COVID situation a lot differently than we have in the States, and the border was closed. So, last year it was a bit tricky only because you didn't know whether or not you had to cross back and tests, and there was a lot of logistics kind of a thing. So that's why I ended up staying down here for a bunch of time. And then this year I'm having, a variety, like there's a bit of a pent up. My family, my brother and sister-in-law are going to be coming in January. We have some family friends that have come to a few of the games. My cousin's down here with me now. She was with me in Portland along with her son. And it was funny because she was with me in Portland. She's a real sports, loves sports. And said, wow, this is, quite the atmosphere. And I said, yeah, U.S. sports are different than Canada to start with. And I said, but you ain't seen nothing till you get to Mackay. And we were at Mackay, and her son were just like, oh my God, this is another, next level. They had so much fun at it. It was awesome. So, it doesn't get any better than Mackay, really.
You're speaking to the heart of Purdue fans right now by saying you just won everybody over.
Well, did you see the dunk count that the paint crew put up? They put up a new sign. Did you notice it? They put it up last game.
I was there, but I did not notice it. I was too involved in the game. What was it?
Yeah, so in the summer, I decided to be, the goofy mom that I am, and I had sent out a message as a joke saying that I thought that they should learn a couple of bars of O Canada, and maybe now that we had 2 7-footers, they should put on a dunk count. So they were like, oh, that sounds like a kind of a cool idea, and didn't really hear much about it. And then Zach had some of the guys over to one of my Airbnbs. They come over once in a while for a home cooked meal. And then Caleb had put this insane put back dunk. I can't even remember what game it was. And I said to Caleb, we need that dunk count. And he was like, what are you talking about? So I told him, I said, I'm trying to get us a dunk count. What do you think? And he was like, you know what? The guards have the 3 count. Yeah, you know what? The bigs should get a dunk count. We should totally do that. And I said, okay, maybe I'll do another nudge. Paint crew was all over it. They were like, we don't have it ready yet. It was really sweet. And then before last game, they said, it's ready. You're going to see it. And so it's over where they put the 3s, but instead of it just being a bunch of 3s, they have a sign that says number of dunks in Mackay. And because at first I wasn't sure how they were going to count it. And so it's just a steady count of the number of dunks in Mackay over the season, I guess. It's very cool.
That's awesome. So the one dunk in the last game where he did it over 2 other individuals, with Harris looking up, that should have got like 3 or 4 points on it itself. That was pretty awesome.
That one was a little insane. I have to admit, I'm kind of secretly hoping those cameras didn't catch me, because that one I was like, wow! I completely jumped up and lost it. It was so much fun to see him do that. It was fun. Yeah.
So you mentioned just earlier that you played basketball growing up.
A little bit, yeah.
And you were excited when Zach took to it. So if we were to organize a tournament of all the Boiler Moms, one-on-one,
no.
who do you think is coming out on top?
we're not counting Neil Ivey anymore, right? Because like that's just
No,
hands down. We're not even discussing that anymore.
You
No,
see,
Neil would be the final boss if you ended
Yeah.
up winning.
Yeah.
You could see if you were able to score against her.
I wouldn't even dare. Huh. I have to think about that one. I don't know. It's an interesting question. The moms are all basketball moms for sure. How many of them actually have played? I'm not too sure. And I didn't play until I was in grade 9. I was a little bit on the Zach side of things, and it was, I was in grade 8. I was 5'9", and my older brother, who's only 5'9", was like, "Come on, you gotta play." So I started late too. So I don't know. I'd have to think. I'm gonna refrain from answering that question. That's a dangerous one.
good answer. That's a good answer.
That is the political answer. No one can be upset about it.
I'm very Canadian. What can I say?
Julia, I think I've got one more serious question for you, and then Audra's probably going to lead us out here with ending. So Zach was obviously heavily under recruited now. I mean, we look back and everybody knows that now. Right. He did have interest from some other high majors, right? I don't know about offers, but ultimately, why Purdue? What was the decision to go to Purdue? What was the draw? What was the appeal?
It's an interesting question because he appears to be underrated. That was a little bit, I have to admit, I think we probably had a slightly accidental or slightly intentional hand in that, only because he reclassified really late. So he planned to come out as a 2021. We went to the NCAA camp in 2020, and it was we went to Baylor was after him, and so we went to Baylor, and they were saying, why wait till 2021? And we're like, yeah, I don't know. Kind of thought about it. Some offers were starting to come, and he was getting a bit of attention, and then Purdue had seen him at the camp too, so they were interested, but they were interested in him as a 2021 because, as you guys had a stack of 2020s, I think, that they were looking at that point. And then, so when we reclassified, and that caught, I think, some people off guard a little bit, and he was still very off the radar, to be honest, as well. And then what happened was we were actually talking to his IMG coach, was trying to steady the team, and he was trying to get the guys placed, and he said to me, called me, and he said, what's Zach's dream school? And Zach and I had been talking about it, like, where would he like to see an offer? Because Baylor was very interesting. I mean, I gotta be honest, they were a really good program. And then but we were waiting. I had said to the Baylor coach, like, listen, we just need a really good comparable for him. And, there was another Big Ten school that was after him, but we weren't that keen on it. And then, we said, Purdue was one of them, and one of the two schools that we would love to see if they were interested at all. And it was a funny story because what happened was he's like, okay, Purdue, that's an interesting choice. I guess most kids are always like, yeah, no, I want to be at Kentucky or Duke or, like that's the really shiny ones. So he thought Purdue was an interesting choice. And he said, you know what, that's an interesting fit. Like, that's a great fit. I'm surprised that that's what you guys kind of come out with out of the blue. And then, so it was a funny story. He knew somebody, I don't even know who it was. He was reaching out to them, but he was on the plane. He told me, I sent a text to them, but I'm going to be on the plane, we'll be on airplane mode. He said by the time he landed, there was a message back already from Purdue that had crossed when they had sent him a text while he was sending them a text, basically in the air. And they landed and they were like, hey, what about Edey? And so it was like, oh my God, well, then let's go check it out. And so, when we came to campus, we were in a flurry of visits at that point. It was just before his senior year. And we were, thinking that we were going to just have him come out as a 2020, but we weren't sure yet. And then when he came down, it was funny. Like I said, we were in a few visits. The whole visit thing is fun, but it's exhausting. And, from a Canadian perspective, it's a little overwhelming. And Zach's, like I say, is a steady kid. He doesn't really like a lot of, stuff kind of going on. He just wants to know what he's like. Once he gets his eyes on the prize, that's what he wants to do. He doesn't want to be kind of all the distraction. So we came down to Purdue, and it was a bit more the vibe than anything else. I mean, in terms of recruiting, it's a steady program. The facilities are good. He really liked the team. He really liked the coaches. The facilities were as good as what else we'd seen. He was excited about being maybe in a school that was about basketball too, like in a state that's about basketball rather than, in a state that's about football, let's just say. Yeah. And it was just, he felt like it was the fit. And it was funny because after the visit, he said to me, kind of like, I'm sort of thinking that this felt pretty good considering he'd been pretty serious about another school. And then he decided to go down to his final 3. And then he asked me too, he said, so do you have a favorite of my 3? And I said, yeah, I do. And he said, well, which one is it? And I said, I'm not telling you till you tell me what you picked. So he said, okay, I'm going to tell you in a couple of days. And then a couple of days later, he said, okay, so Mom, I'm thinking Purdue. And I said, well, I've got to tell you, that's the one I liked too. So it was pretty cool. So it just was a general fit feeling for him. And it was interesting because I think part of it was Painter can be painfully blunt, which I thought was maybe going to throw off Zach a bit, but I liked it as a mom. I was like, this guy's the real deal. Like, he's telling Zach what he wants and, what he really thinks. But Zach's a tough kid in terms of what he thinks. He doesn't really want to hear, stuff that he thinks is what you want to hear, tell him, sort of thing. So it was cool. He just said, that felt very honest to me. And I think that that's somewhere that I can work with. And I was like, okay, cool. Let's do it. The only thing I said to him is, do you want to go back to 4 seasons? Because he'd been in Florida.
Right.
Finding him pants that were long enough, I didn't have to do that for 2 years. I was so happy. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to find him pants again. This is painful. So he said, yeah, I'm ready for snow again. I said, all right. He said, I miss it a bit. I said, all right.
Well, let me tell you, we're damn glad he chose Purdue.
So are we.
I think Audra's got one lighthearted question for you, and then we'll let you get out of here.
Sounds good.
Yes. I think we probably all saw after, I want to say it was Gonzaga, but it may have been Duke, but you posted a picture of a pint of beer. And I was like, my girl. And I need to know, what is your post-game choice of beer?
Well, you know what? It's funny. For the first time during this, I don't have the Airbnb that I'm normally staying at yet. I'm starting in January to be down here kind of full time. So right now I have been doing a lot of traveling back and forth. And because my cousin's down here, she actually was staying down here in West Lafayette. And I was like, okay. So she said, stay with me. So the first time I've had Boiler Gold, I have to say it's a pretty decent beer. I was impressed because, Canadians, we do like our beers, and engineers are like, I'm a retired engineer, so we tend towards beer as well. So I gotta say, it was a-okay with me.
Good choice. Good choice.
That's awesome. Well, Julia, thank you. Real quick before I let you go, will you make a promise that when Purdue's in the Final Four this year, you'll come back and do another show with us?
I think I can make that promise, and I like the when. I think that sounds really great.
Okay.
Sounds like a deal.
You're awesome. You're a great follow on Twitter. We really appreciate you coming on tonight. And I'm sorry that we ran over our time here a little bit, but
you're all good.
Again, thanks for coming on tonight. And,
no, appreciate the support.
All right. Thank you, Julia.
Okay. Take care, guys.
Yep.
Thanks.
Thank
Pleasure
you.
talking to you. Bye.
Well, guys, Julia Edey's pretty awesome. I don't know what you think, but she's a good interview, and I wish we could have her on here every night.
She was great.
Completely agree.
That'll be there'll be something for everyone there. That was
that's good stuff. We're still recording here. I don't think we have any follow up on that except for Purdue plays Hofstra tomorrow. I don't know if there's a line out on that game.
So well, it sounds like Hofstra. Let me look quick. Hofstra is probably one of the better, not major schools we're playing in the non-conference. Hofstra, 19
20 points.
19.5. So hopefully it's a snoozer. Hopefully we have no need to do a live space tomorrow.
especially because it's on BTN Plus.
Oh yeah, that'll be yeah.
Oh.
So, with that said, thank you all for joining tonight. Thanks for to my co-hosts, and thanks to everybody that's watching this on a recording. On behalf of Riles, Audra, and Carrie, I'm Habitual Boiler. Thanks for tuning in to Boiler Up, Beer Down, and we'll catch you next time. Go Boilers.